It's another week in the For Your Reference household, but it is the week of two firsts. It is the first time we are covering Courtney Cox on the podcast and also, most lovingly, Greg Kinnear. Kinnear or Far. Let's get on with the show. Friends and erotica lovers, welcome back to the For Your Reference podcast. You got your host, Katie.
And Dottie.
Rediscover your faculties with lustful lovers, youthful rebirth, and paranormal happenings. File us under In Heat Housewives section as we discuss Shining Vale this week. Let's get into general stats and information, and welcome, friends and lovers. Welcome to a lovely, delicious time. Creators of Jeff Astrof and Sharon Horgan. Surprisingly, Tarantino, you can create something and not insert yourself. Didn't you done that? This show is part of the Stars Enterprise. I think you could mistake it for being the 50 Cent Enterprise. It was released in March of 2022. In way of cast, we have Courtney Cox, Greg Kinnear, and Susan Park. Friends and lovers, spoiler, tryst. Let's get straight into it. Let's talk about first impressions. I do believe you introduced, and most welcomely, thank you for introducing Shining Vale into our household. How did you feel about it? How did you feel throughout? And where are you sitting now? Because it has been announced that season 2 is going to be coming out. So how do you feel, my love?
Excited. I'm glad that it's been given the go-ahead for season 2. It's a show that I wasn't really that confident in. It had people that we love, and Courtney and Greg.
Like besties, hey? One might say NBC Enterprise friends.
Yeah. And I was like, you know what? Let's give it a go. One of the shows Force was coming to an end when I think Shining Vale came through, and we're like, you know what? Let's give it a go. And it's a decision that we don't regret. It really caught on. The first episode gave us, or at least gave me, a bit of Hereditary vibe, and I didn't know where we were going.
Nice Arioti-asta, thank you.
And I thought maybe, okay, this is gonna get a bit interesting. And this longer we continued watching it, the farther away from Hereditary, to my opinion, it went from. But it was still enjoyable, and I'm just glad that we have this to look forward to.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess if we were to talk more like recent sort of similar sort of thematics, we recently covered From, which is a very eerie couple of steps away from reality, and that's kind of where Shining Vale is. Even Castle Rock, which unfortunately we kind of dropped off on. You could, if you're being generous, you could call it a slow burn, but I do feel like it kind of just jilted for a little bit. But like thematically, aesthetically, it did kind of remind me of Castle Rock, and even most recently, Yellow Jackets.
Oh.
Yeah, just to have that sort of grainy creepiness, that paranormal happenings going around. I think it is quite clear, and, we haven't necessarily covered it on the podcast, but you can definitely draw inspirations from The Shining, Rosemary's Baby, and I guess even just the sense that, Courtney Cox's character, Pat, is an author. You could even talk to Misery as well. So there's definitely a lot of leanings, a lot of inspirations. In no way does it feel like it was trying to duplicate, but you can definitely see the homages. And, even when we talk about Jordan Peele, you can see when the creators and the directors and the writers and those behind the screens are fans of the horror genre.
Oh, yeah. You gotta be a fan fast, man.
Yeah. And what I will say, I don't know. I haven't necessarily followed Courtney Cox's career. I wouldn't say that she would be the first of the Friends alumni that we've covered. Maybe very Panic at the Disco Lee. It might even be Schwimmer because we talked about him in 30 Rock.
Well, I think growing up, Matthew Perry was sort of the go-to for me. I think I gravitated towards more his movies more than any other cast member. So yeah, look forward to Matthew Perry degustation.
Friends and lovers, if you notice any emails coming out from hello@FYR podcast about OT unofficial Matthew Perry merch, please report to sender. Feel free. I don't think that's going to get us to quit. I think Theo's Instagram will get us out of work much quicker.
Oh, you reckon?
So are you saying like Courtney Cox in general in regards to Friends? Because we've never really gotten a chance to speak, and I've never really latched on to the Scream sort of franchise. But so you're saying Matthew Perry is your fave? Because really the only one I can think of right now is 17 again with like Zac Efron.
Not my fave, just more of his work outside of Friends at the time. He got some really exciting movies, or at least I remember fondly. Probably now if I rewatch, that won't be the case, but I'll keep on to my memories. I remember David Schwimmer's sort of 6 days, 7 nights. It wasn't even the main star, but I don't know, like Matthew Perry was the one that I watched most outside of that. So
not even Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah, her stuff was there too, but I don't know, just didn't really like them.
Well, there you go, friends and lovers. It was our For Your Reference Friends Corner. That's as much as we're going to say. I would recommend you go and watch Living Single and check out our episode for Living Single. I guess my point is, because I'm not very familiar with any of the Friends, only OT, my lover, is I don't know, is Courtney Cox like typecast as being a bitch? No, because what I'm saying is she's very effective as a bitch with Pat.
Yeah, she's in Cougar Town. She's sort of a bitch. I felt like I had to do a Key and Peele hide somewhere before I said that. But
watch out for our upcoming feminist show Minx in the coming weeks, friends and lovers.
But yeah,
she's a bitch because she's a bitch, not because she's a woman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hold standards in this house.
Some decorum, dear OT. Some decorum. Well, I guess my point is I really didn't like her as a character. And if you'll pardon the pun, Greg Kinnear is my little ray of sunshine. And I fucking love him. And I would love to protect him like a little baby bird and hold him against both of mine bosoms. I just want to take care of him and I want to make sure he's okay, right? So to have the contrast between these two, you know, it was very clear to me that Courtney Cox was hitting all of the notes in regards to that bitch sort of character. And I'm all about it. You know, as the residential bitch on this podcast, I love a good bitch moment. However, I'm saying I didn't like her from the jump, right?
Did you at least warm towards her as the show progressed?
No. I think I'm more endeared to Rosemary than I am Pat, and Rosemary killed her family.
Yeah.
But I guess the point that I want to say is, even though I didn't care for Pat, I did find myself enjoying the show. You know, sometimes when characters are so frustrating that it makes you not want to be in a rush to finish the show or to continue on a week-to-week sort of basis. I was loving it. And I think that that's also credit to the cinematography. We talked about the aesthetics, the ability to be able to create an ongoing week-to-week atmosphere, an unsettling atmosphere. You know, you referenced Hereditary earlier, and if we're going to continue talking about Ari Aster, like Midsummer, there's lots of like unsettling scenes in Ari Aster's cinematography, and we definitely saw that with Valerie's character and the way she died.
We did.
If you cling to the deity, that was kind of a way to go, really. It was a medieval Christianity on the spike going on there. Valerie the Impaled, am I right? but there was so much quality, and even the writing in this show, it was very solid. It made me care about a lot of the characters. And then even though I didn't care for Pat, she felt lived in. She felt like a character that had their own motivations and their own experiences.
Yeah, 100% agreed. I think, to me at least, I got to understand more Pat's character. Yes, there are moments where I'm like, this is fucked up, I don't agree, but you can sort of see where she was coming from. But majority of the time, it was definitely Terry's character that carried the show throughout.
And I'm sure, Greg Kinnear, as lovely as he is human. I don't see a world where he isn't perfect, but he kind of was. And Terry's character felt like a perfect man. And I'm like, what are you doing? And then we also find out, because I don't think it was revealed at the start of the show why they were moving to that house, right? So that was like slowly unveiling the Shining Vale, if you'll pardon the pun, on why they went for broke and they moved there because Pat went yonder.
That's a way to put it. She did cheat on Terry multiple times, as Terry found out.
Yeah,
which is sad. You could sort of explain the one-off incident, kinda. I'm not encouraging it, anyone. But for it to happen throughout the week, for Pat to even recognize a coffee machine,
yeah,
that's fucked up.
And I also feel like there's a lot of don't give a fuckery from Pat's character. There's also a part of me that feels like Pat doesn't even care that she accidentally revealed that. You know what I mean? It's not like she got caught and she's like, oh, sorry. But then, there is a component, and there's also like, content warnings at the start and, resources at the end of episodes about, mental illness and also about suicide ideation as well. So I guess if we take that component on, then it makes sense that she was a bit indifferent to the fact that it was hurting Terry, her husband, devoted husband who loves her so much, because she wasn't in a space to be able to navigate a loving, healthy marriage.
Yeah, loving, healthy marriage, and her job she had taken, they'd given her advance. She had not written a word for her book, and I think the stress caught up to her. She didn't feel like she could. Once you get that sort of best-selling author tag, trying to come up with a second book was difficult for her. So
doesn't it feel like everyone's a New York bestseller though?
Yeah, at this point, man.
I don't know. Friends and lovers, please meet us at our new website, New York Best Podcast Sellers. Surely it can translate to podcasts as well. But, while we're talking, I'm even finding parallels with Fatal Attraction.
Yeah, I could see some sameness in that.
But I'm finding it interesting because pretty much right at the jump of this episode, I was talking about how Pat's such a bitch, right? And even though it's acknowledged that she's getting the help she needs, and, there is a component of mental illness, I don't have the same sympathy for her the way that I had sympathy for Glenn Close's character in Fatal Attraction. But maybe it's just who had power.
You had sympathy for her?
I believe I did. Maybe because of her dry pussy needing tap water.
Yeah, that'd do it.
I think the Fatal Attraction was between the loins. But I'm saying it's all in the game. Like Michael Douglas, for your reference, go and check out our episode on The Game as well. Our OG go-to 80s horny man, Michael Douglas, he initiated all of that shit, right? So maybe that's the difference, because we have two women, two protagonists in Shining Vale as well as Fatal Attraction. But with Glenn Close's character, she just couldn't help but fall in love.
If you'd call that love.
But you see what I'm saying? We have female characters that have acknowledged mental illness, but for some reason it doesn't equal that I'm both going to care about them. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and fair enough, man. We get to see why Patricia is like that. And I think the moment where Gaynor sort of starts feeling sad for Pat, because Gaynor has this attitude. She's a teenager. She fucking hates her parents. Nothing new in the world. But the moment where
can I also interject that someone who was once a young woman.
Is that how you worked?
I didn't say innocent. I just said young. No, but there was a part that I resonated with Gaynor because it's the hypocrisy of Pat. Like, who are you to tell me I can't wear this fucking outfit? Meanwhile, you stepped out on your whole marriage. Like, how does that even equal that?
But once you look beyond the salaciousness of everything around Pat, she had a fucking tough childhood.
No, but don't do that. Like but that doesn't work. Oh, because I'm your mom, because I'm your parent, and I tell you to do this. Monkey see, monkey do. Monkey splooshy all over you.
Wow. She had to put her mom in a home. And even when Gaynor had that, she was like, oh, fuck. I've been mean to Pat all this time. And she had to go through this as a kid. Why can't you afford her some of the sympathy that we even see Gaynor give Pat in one of those rarest moments?
So you do have friends tax. You tried to trick me with Matthew Perry. It was a smokescreen because you really care about Courtney Cox. No, but that's not fair because Gaynor's a young teenager and she obviously, as a young woman, she was leaning on her mother to give her guidance. So in that sense, I don't think the way that she treated her mum was anything that was out of line or out of order. And if you're saying it the same way, we discovered things about Pat, but also in many other cases, when we talk about characters in fictional fucking films and TV shows, you choose where you want to deposit your resonance as well.
Yeah, no, it was just shocking that there wasn't any left for Pat when I felt like she had to endure a lot.
But does that mean she can continue going around, continuing to break the foundations of her marriage, continuing to be absent for her children? Does that excuse all of that? And continuing to give blowjobs in the convertible?
I'm not going to be the blowjob gatekeeper. That should be a podcast.
It's a New York best podcast selling.
But I just feel that despite all her flaws, and I agree, she's a terrible person. She's a terrible mother. She doesn't know what Gaynor and Jake do most of the time.
Whoa, can we acknowledge that women have multi-dimensions and they're not just wholly terrible?
Not everyone is a good mother.
I'm
just saying.
Leave Sissy Saint alone. I will no longer have this slander. Friends and lovers, I often lay awake at night thinking how this podcast is going to get cancelled. And I'm pretty sure what OT said. But to be fair, I'm not the one that said it. So I'm glad you're the one that's going to get, that heat.
I think Pat is flawed, like any other bloody human in this world. And she's struggling to deal with it and trying to capture moments where she was happier in life in writing a book or being a successful author. So, you know what? In as much as I know all her flaws, I could still throw some sympathy or have some tax around that.
Friends and lovers, this is a perfect example of where I personally don't think the word female is loaded or offensive in any way. But then you start to hear particular people say the word female and you... and you realize there is absolutely a loaded venom. Hashtag reproductive rights. Hashtag OT stay away from my ovaries. My female ovary. Are we done exploring your mummy issues now?
Yeah. Let's move on.
Well, let's talk about Terry. If we're going to talk about the married couple, I think it's a scenario of watching a car crash and knowing that you shouldn't be looking, but you continue looking in regards to Terry, because I personally have not been in this situation, but I can also understand why Terry needed to know, even though logically that doesn't help the healing process or the ability to move on. I don't know what he expected going there to beat the guy up, but he did his done diddly hardest, didn't he?
He did. You can tell that he loves Pat a lot. He's trying to repair the marriage. They're going to therapy, and that I'm pretty sure we'll get to that therapist later. But even in the revelations, in the therapy sessions, and everything you get to learn, I'm like, why are you still with Pat? Like, she's giving you every excuse to just bloody walk away. And I think even that frustrates or makes Pat wonder a bit, like, why is this guy still here?
I think it's also like, why aren't you reacting at all? Because it is reasonable for any human to react to the situation. And I think as toxic as it is of Pat wanting a reaction, because she did it. She threatened him with, was it a fire poker or like, I don't know. Bobby Brown mounting on a ghost. You can use your ghost as an excuse. You can use your sleep paralysis demon, apparently named George and Evil, as your excuse. But, you know, in any case, in essence, Pat was almost about to kill Terry and still nothing.
Yeah, and that's what I want to hopefully we delve deeper into in season 2, because there's a lot. You know, he even finds the pictures of Pat's giving Rosemary's husband head, and he's still there.
Yeah.
At the end, you know.
Like, it's not unreasonable for you to react to this.
Yeah, you know, and considering there's also Catherine in the mix who's throwing herself.
Catherine.
Yeah, like, it's wild. It's
Shout
wild.
outs to Figaro.
Mm-hmm.
Orange is the new black. No, but what do you think about it? Because there's definitely two components here. There's the fact that you love someone, and unfortunately, in this case, Pat kind of betrayed that love that Terry had, not just by cheating, but by continuing to test his love for her. And you can really, you know, like, you can really love someone, and unfortunately, it's to the detriment of your own self and your own needs and your own care, right? So those are the two sort of components. The fact that he loved Pat so much, but then also him not wanting to necessarily face the reality of this potentially rocking everything he knows, his marriage, his children, his livelihood.
Yeah, I think at the point towards the end there, we see that Terry is making the decision, okay, I'm going to send the kids away to my parents, and then hopefully they figure out whatever's going on. But everything just goes haywire after that. I want to see a wholly realized Terry in season 2, where we delve deeper, we understand every action, because we don't know his background yet. We've gotten a lot of Pat's background on how she is, who she is. With Terry, you know, he's the good guy. He doesn't want to offend anyone in the office. Even when the boss is being a dick, he'll just be there. And the most shocking thing that he ever did was give his boss a bloody finger when he resigned. We all want to do that. But you could tell that it meant so much to him, even though he didn't know what the fuck he'd do with his life after that. So I'm really intrigued to see the man behind the curtain and understand exactly why it is like that.
I think, you know, it's clear because, you know, was it 17 years that Pat was sober? Like, he's had to shoulder a lot of being the rock, being the dependable one, making sure that, you know, if everything fell to shit, that he was there to pick up the pieces, whether it be the kids, whether it be Pat. He had to be the dependable one. And I think that's quite clear. He got used to being that. And, you know, we also see later that, you know, he was hiding the fact that the house that they bought, there was a suicide in the house. But I think we've now learned that there were multiple, I think the suicide would be Rosemary, but she killed her family. So in any case, semantics. But the point is, he felt the need to continue to protect Pat because it was frustrating. And I understand why Pat was frustrated that Terry didn't tell her. But also at the same time, even without, like you say, getting a backstory of Terry, you can imagine the years and the decades that he's held this family together.
I can. And we saw a moment where he was scared of not having anything to do in the morning when he woke up.
Yeah.
Because for so many years he was that Mr. Dependable.
Is that a Kelly Clarkson spin-off?
Or I thought more a Neo spin-off, babe.
Okay. Get your fedora ready. Did you think there was a part of him that was going to roll in the hay with Catherine?
I'd hoped he'd have fun.
To like balance it out?
Yeah. Plus the fact that when Terry told Pat, oh, I was about to chill with Catherine, Pat was like, oh, you'd have been a pass.
Yeah.
Just do whatever makes you happy, man. He deserves it. But then again, he was fucked by Rosemary, so he thought there were levels deeper in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess once you get that paranormal level of sustenance, you can't really go back to the carnal form.
Bobby Brown talks about that shit till this day.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right. There is like a darkness and there is a sadness. There is a loneliness brewing in Terry. And I think we start to see it. Like, you know, for as, I wouldn't say naive, but for as committed as he was to uphold the unrealistic image of a perfect family, that was keeping him going. Once he lost his job, that's when he sunk to a level of no return. So I didn't even realize that I would want a possibility of a Terry backstory, but now I'm most welcome.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's talk about the children. Do you want to talk about Jake first or you want to talk about Gaynor?
Let's start with Gaynor.
Okay, there's definitely a lot more, and there's not as much stranger danger in regards to Gaynor, but you do pull to, I would say, one of the most compelling sort of story arcs in this show. And again, it does bring into perspective what Pat has gone through in the sense that she's not in isolation. You know, she wasn't raised by a village. She was raised by a mother that was not well. And unfortunately, she, at a very young age, at Gaynor's age, had to admit her mom into an institution. That's some heavy fucking shit.
It is.
And I guess while we're also talking about parallels and comparisons, when we were first watching this show, I was a bit concerned over how they would traverse and how they would be able to balance the supernatural with real life hard shit like mental illness. I was worried it was going to be a bit like Relic. We love Emily Mortimer, and she does have a primo Australian accent more than
with hollow bones.
Thank you, 30 Rock reference. And I feel like she has a better accent than Rose Byrne, and I know she's Australian. Come and fight me, neighbor motherfuckers.
Wow.
But Relic, I feel like didn't really deliver in that particular sense, and I'm not going to spoil it in particular. But if we're talking about traversing, you know, drawing parallels between really hard life shit with supernatural stuff, elements, I really feel like Shining Vale did that beautifully, and it really continued to build on that quality as the show continued. But that's kind of where we see, you know, the dynamic between Pat and her mom, because she had to be that person. And, you know, it's interesting as we talk about this, you know, Pat had to be that so long for her mother. And obviously, unfortunately, and because we always say no one can fuck you up,
more than your parents.
So even though Pat will get to a point of healing, it will always be a continual cycle because that is still her mother.
Mm-hmm.
And how the fuck do you reconcile having a less than savorable childhood the way that Pat did? Like, she's never going to fully heal from that, unfucking fortunately.
True. It is sad. And I think we see Gaynor sort of still want, you know, she could act standoffish all she wants, but in the moments where life happens, you can see that she's looking towards Pat to be there. You know, she's been let down a lot of the time. She doesn't really want to expect too much from Pat.
Yeah.
But in those moments where, okay, I'm going to get baptized, I'm going to want my parents there, I'm going to want my mom there. And you could see how sad she was. Like, yeah, she could brush it off aside, but she was like, it would have been cool to have my mom here because, hey, you're the fucking mother.
Yeah.
Even when she still understood where Pat was coming from or what Pat had to endure as a kid.
Yeah.
Yes, she got emotional. She understood. She wanted to be close, or at least be closer to her mom.
Yeah.
But that still didn't happen because her mom had always had this sort of trail of thought of, oh, Dana will always be this sort of way. And it didn't come, that moment of closeness didn't come up until Rosemary showed up. And Rosemary was able to sort of create that bond.
Yeah, as a non-parent, I do wonder because, like, for me, it was very clear that Pat was continuing the cycle of brokenness. I do wonder that. And or maybe even if we're not even talking about being a parent, I think sometimes it's easier to see the behaviors in other people than of ourselves, probably.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's a responsibility, especially if you're a parent, in Gaina's, direction, because it is literally deja vu of what she went through, Black Cat Matrix and otherwise.
It is. You can see what her future would probably be like.
Yeah.
And that's sad.
Yeah.
And the fact that Pat had to go back to her mom to ask for pills that she used to take.
Yeah.
That was truly horrifying to me. I was like, just repeating itself. But she's still not able to identify that. And that's the most worrying thing.
I kind of want to take a step back and have the conversation we were having when we were talking about From. Friends and Lovers, for those that don't get to listen in a linear timeline, Harold Perrineau and the producers and people involved in the TV show Lost, we talked about whether the situation and the setting of the From TV show was grounded in any sort of reality, or was it sci-fi? And I kind of want to pose that question here in Shining Vale. Do you believe that we are grounded and it really is mental illness with Pat and also her mother, and a lot of the hallucinations and fantastical supernatural stuff is, I guess, being exhibited through that? Or do you think we're in a meld of both worlds?
Oh, I think this is wholly rooted in reality, sadly.
Yeah, right?
I feel like everything is in Pat's mind.
Sad.
Even when we see the Valerie die, I feel like Pat had to be there to do something. I feel like Pat pushed her or some shit.
Yeah.
Once it's all revealed at the end, I feel like Pat will be at the center of every mishap that's happened.
Because there are blackout moments.
Exactly. And in those moments, they don't show us what transpired.
Yeah.
I just feel this is wholly rooted in reality, sadly, and different from that supernatural element of it. I think it's just a tool to get us from point A to B, but it's not what's really going on.
So you're the gatekeeper for sci-fi, but not the gatekeeper for sci-fi blowjobs.
No. Ectoplasm matters.
Sploosh, friends and lovers. No, but I do think that's an interesting sort of element. It doesn't take anything away from me, but I do wonder how you were feeling about the whole hallucinations. And, a lot of it is driven by her meds. Because obviously that alters the state. And then progressively she breaks her sobriety and she starts drinking again. So a lot of it is fueled by medication and the alcohol.
Yeah. And if those are not clues to you that this is wholly rooted in reality, then I don't know what to say. I don't feel like the supernatural elements of the show are a reflection of what's happening. Yeah, even when we get to Jake and talk about Daisy being in the VR, no one else can see Daisy. There's something going on with the Phelps.
Yeah.
I need it supernatural.
Send Phelps, eh? Thank you, OT, the original Hardy Boy.
You're welcome. I've got a clue, and it's pointing right to G.
Thank you, Jupiter's OT's cock. Well, let's talk about Jake. But thank you for that tantalizing discussion. I always like the vessel of, imagery and symbolism, and how it relates to, because I love grounding a story. Mm-hmm. I love grounding a story. But yeah, let's talk about Jake. Like you mentioned, Daisy seemed to be like like a character that none of his gaming friends acknowledged. And we did have a cute exchange between Terry and Laird when, you know, potentially catfishing and potentially predatorily coming after Jake. But it was just both of their sons being best friends online. So that was very cute, but it does present a interesting sort of element into the show. And I think it's quite clear that Pat, as well as potentially Jake, a lot of the characters are that sort of unreliable narrators, right? We don't necessarily take everything they say on face value, but it also leaves it up to interpretation, because we could say it's supernatural, we could just say it's a glitch, but I would say, personally, I would say that Daisy in some sort of supernatural form is trying to contact Jake.
Oh, so you think there's some supernatural aspects to this?
Oh, did you just entrap me? Who am I, Bodhi? Go and check out our episode of The Wire, and I'm sure we'll cover We Own This City, right?
Oh, for sure.
Nice. Oh, you son of a bitch. Apparently I'm in.
Yeah, I think the Daisy character is...
How do you explain it? How do you explain it? If you don't believe...
It's bloody problematic, all right?
If you don't believe in the dogma, how do you explain it?
You know how you get these conspiracy theories and there'll always be a dead giveaway that this fucking thing will crumble your theory? Daisy is that thing in this where I feel like it's not a supernatural aspect at all, but I can't find a reasonable way to explain Daisy away unless Jake is also going through some shit. And I'm not so sure he is.
Oh, I see. I see what you're saying. But just for clarification, did he only ever see Daisy through the VR set? I can't remember now.
Yeah, only through the VR.
Okay, it was only through the VR. Okay, so that definitely refines potential theories. I guess we'll continue to sit on our theories, right, OT?
Mm-hmm.
How do you think about the friendship between Terry and Laird?
I love it. He's a sad man.
What was he saying when they were when Terry was texting with Catherine? Was it hell yeah or something?
Yeah.
Or F yeah?
F yeah. Just why not? Terry needed a push. He wouldn't have gone to the vineyard otherwise.
Wow. Okay. Well, I want to talk about Rosemary. Like, I know we've talked about her in proxy to Pat. However, she is her own character. And again, I'm bringing another comparison parallel. Ethan Hawke's Sinister. You know, there is an element of, without spoiling, but there's an element of like murders in the building. And I'm not talking about Selena Gomez and the two old fellas. What do you think is the story there? Do you think it's just clear cut that she was a Stepford wife that glitched? Or do you think there's more to the story?
I don't think there's a Rosemary, and that's my point.
Oh, so you're eliminating everything.
Yeah, I don't think there's a Rosemary. I think that's just a figment of Pat's imagination.
Okay, O.T. Ackroyd Murray.
Are
you demon busting?
I am. I'm just thinking, like, with everything Pat's going through, I just don't feel the supernatural aspect makes sense, because I know that with her blackouts, with everything that she's having to endure, she's in the center of everything. I just think Rosemary is an imagination, and that's it.
But you also acknowledge that you can't explain Daisy.
Well. That's the chink in the chain. We'll find a way though.
I suppose. How interesting that usually you're fine with keeping things open-ended. So the fact that you've come to a conclusion already in season 1 is very interesting.
And that's why I'm looking forward to season 2. Prove me wrong. Like this is what we
Okay, who do you think you are? Ronnie Chang?
It's like with Form, where I was, let it just be Sapphire, because if he wasn't, I would have been just bloody pissed.
Well, maybe you're the one that's emotionally stuck then.
Maybe I am.
Speaking of emotionally stuck, I want to address Christianity.
Jesus.
Exactly. So there was, you know, I guess wherever there are demons, there are also angels, if you'll pardon the boomba-clat Chet Hanks dad pun.
Oh, wow.
You're welcome.
You should all watch Z-Way.
We fucking love Z-Way.
The Chet Hanks interview is the wildest thing you'll see this year.
Chet Hanks, Charlemagne the God, Kendall from Succession. But I want to talk. I want to talk about the presence of it, because it wasn't just there are demons in the area, and that's kind of, I wouldn't say Valerie was one dimensional, but she was definitely sharpshooting on a particular instance, and that was, I guess, warding off the evil spirits. Also, maybe the hallucinations that Pat had were influenced by, but it seemed like there was local law that there was steps, Bee Gees, tragedy in the house.
Yeah. And I think Pat can just carry that and run with it as a story and build on it. You know, ooh, ghost, Rosemary, the person who died here is in my head and she's telling me to do all these crazy things and she's writing my book. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. But it goes beyond that. And you also see Gaynor having, you know, I guess that sort of comfort, right? And even if you look at it, especially having Pat as a mother, there was a lot of uncertainty. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of moments for vulnerability with her mom. And it makes sense. It makes sense that, you know, even in this technological Neil deGrasse Tyson age, that there would be people that still cling to religion, Christianity specifically. So I just thought it was an interesting sort of element. Do you think we're going to see more of the dogma in season 2, or you think it's just going to be used as a warm, fuzzy blanket?
Probably a blanket. I'm not sure I wanted to go that direction where it becomes a bigger part of it. But we'll see.
We will see. Actually, last thing I want to say before we finish up, Gaynor, it was revealed that she's pregnant. We're not Roe v. Wading right now. So I guess the assumption is that she's going to keep the baby.
I guess so.
Okay. What are your thoughts? Do you think she's going to run off with Ryan in LA?
I think something's going to hinder it. It's not going to happen.
I know, but I feel like this is her one chance at having some sort of life, like some sort of life that she can own and have control in the menial sense of however we can control our lives. Like, I feel like this is really a good chance for her to try.
If it wasn't a TV show, I'd be like, yeah, but because we love drama, that's not going to happen.
We do love drama, but we don't start it, friends and lovers. Thank you, friends and lovers, for joining us another week in the For Your Reference household. We're going to finish off in a segment we call For Your Reference. OT.
I'm going to reference Hereditary because it was always at the back of my mind when I started watching this, and I always like to draw parallels. So go right ahead. Toni Collette, amazing of an actor. Just brilliant to watch.
Mwah, mwah, mwah. I don't have any kisses. Those were all for Tony. I will reference Fatal Attraction.
Okay.
But I won't reference Tehran. That's for anyone that understands the reference. If you would like to throw OT and I your reference on Twitter and Instagram, we're at ForYourRefPod.
Write us an email at hello@podcast.com.
We're also on Question Everything podcast if you'd like to leave a rating and review. And we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
Bye.